Our invocation tonight will be led by Pastor Dina Duchesne from Freedom Destiny Church, and then she will also lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you stand, please?
Hello, there we are. All right. All right, God, we just invite you into the room. We thank you, Lord, for these leaders, for these who have come together to discuss what is happening with our students, with teachers, with those who have a special interest and a love for the education that happens here in Clay County. We ask you, sir, that you would walk into the room, that this group of people would come together and be unified in their vision and their focus and the things that they will discuss this evening. We ask, Lord, that you would bring in unity, that people would be slow to speak, quick to listen, Lord, that you would be the one who is in the center of the discussions. We thank you, Lord, for the privilege and the honor to lead young people into their future destinies and purposes. We ask you, Lord, that you would just bless each person in the room, their families, and everyone that they are connected to. We thank you, Lord, for this county of Clay County and all of what you're doing in our county as we look to a year that is going to be one that is different than they've ever been before. We ask that you would keep people safe as they continue to make decisions about just what we will do and how we will keep our students safe, as well as bring forth education and help them to meet those standards. So we thank you for all of these things in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, we do pray. Amen. All right, we're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Duchesne. The Clay County School Board meeting, June 25th, 2020, will come to order. I'd like to welcome citizens of Clay County. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to attend tonight's school board meeting. This meeting is our opportunity as your elected representatives to collaborate openly and make decisions that will decide the future direction of our public schools and the education of our children here in Clay County. If you wish to address the board on an agenda item, there will be an opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. Please fill out a card, which you will find located in the back of the room, indicating the specific item number or topic you wish to speak about, and turn it in promptly. And you may turn it in to any of the officers that you see in the room. No additional cards will be accepted once the board moves to the public comment section under presentations from the audience. No public comments were submitted via the comment link on our website. Your participation is welcomed and appreciated, and I do want you to know the board is socially conscious, and we all have our masks, but we can't talk with the mask on so that you could hear us, and so we decided to, try to take the mask off, but we won't come near you if we can help it. Okay. First thing is recognitions and awards. Recognize social studies teachers of the year. Kelly Watt, our social studies specialist.
Madam Chair, point of order. Mr. Rosker, we talked about somebody cleaning the lectern before each person going to it. Has it been done? You did. Thank you.
He did it.
Appreciate that.
Hey, Ms. Watt.
This year, Superintendent Roski invited teachers, administrators, and staff members to nominate Clay County social studies teachers who inspire creativity, passion, and hope with our young. I don't think the microphone is on.
Yeah, I don't think.
You want me to start over?
Yes.
Okay.
That's much better.
Is that better?
We thought our hearing was going.
All right. So we'll try this again. So every year, the Florida Council for Social Studies provides us the opportunity to recognize our outstanding teachers. This year, Superintendent Broski invited teachers, administrators, and staff members to nominate Clay County Social Studies teachers who inspire creativity, passion, and hope with our young people. These teachers competed for 3 different awards: a Beginning Teacher Award, Excellence in Teaching History Award, and as the Outstanding Social Studies Teacher Award for elementary, junior high, and senior high. This year, we had over 60 teachers nominated. And so tonight, I'd like to introduce you to the 5 teachers who were selected to represent our district. The first one is Karen Steinmetz from Lake Asbury Elementary. Come on up, Karen. All right. And a little bit about Karen. All right, so Karen teaches 6th grade at Lake Asbury Elementary, and she was recognized and nominated by a number of different people, all who recognize her passion and leadership in social studies. She eagerly supports new teachers with resources, strategy, and a lot of encouragement. And her students will tell you that she has really high expectations for every one of them, and they rise to it. She creates learning experiences that engage students in reading and inquiry-based learning, especially things like DBQ. Her passion makes her an excellent representative for this special award. Thank you, Ms. Steinmetz. And let me make sure I get the right one. Apologize for this. There you are, Ms. Steinmetz. Congratulations.
Are we going to get a picture? You want to wait
So-
and get a picture of all of them
Yeah, if
together?
you want to wait here.
Yeah, don't
and
go
then
away.
We're going to get all 5 at the end, if that's okay.
Yeah, that sounds
Okay.
good. I just didn't want her to go sit down. I thought, we want your picture. Okay.
All right. And our next teacher is Miss Cynthia Cheatwood from Orange Park Junior High. Come on up, Miss Cheatwood. All right. Miss Cheatwood, she's been, when you think about social studies at Orange Park Junior High, you probably automatically think of Cindy Cheatwood. They just kind of go hand in hand. And she teaches civics and U.S. history there. And in her many years there, she's created a program that moves learning far beyond the 4 walls of that school. Her students participate in field trips, community events, and lots of competitions, and they always do quite well. She is a leader who knows how to extend learning and give students real-world experience. She's also a leader when it comes to Clay County history. She's also a recent author. And she has really been critical to our success in bringing local history to our U.S. history curriculum. She has a passion for it. The kids see it, and they go on to high school, and they carry that with them. And I just know that our district is better because Miss Cheatwood is in it. So thank you, Miss Cheatwood. Here you go. Oh, we're going to stay here. Yep. All right. And next up is Miss Keisha Gordon. All right. I'll go ahead and hand this to you now. All right. A little bit about Miss Gordon. Whenever I ask someone about Miss Gordon or you hear her name, the phrase you will hear over and over is total rock star. She teaches social study at Clay Virtual Academy, where she has found a way to specially connect with each and every one of her students. For instance, she's created a historical figures Instagram account where she gives kids a chance to interact with it. She'll ask them a question and they respond on there. And she's able to check in on their learning through platforms that is a way that they communicate. And so she really inspires their learning. Her students absolutely love her. She meets students exactly where they are with patience, compassion, and lots of encouragement. Especially at this time, Ms. Gordon reminds us that you don't have to share the same physical space with students in order to have a tremendous impact on them as students and as people. So Thank you, Ms. Gordon, for everything you do for us. All right, and our next up is Miss Melissa Fisher from Oakleaf High. I think she's on her way. There she is, Miss Fisher. Come on up here. Come on up. Hang tight. All right. And Miss Melissa Fisher is being recognized as our social studies, our Excellence in Teaching History Award. And she teaches U.S. history at Oakleaf High School. This is actually her first year teaching U.S. history at Oakleaf High School. She's taught social studies at other schools. But when she came in and had a tremendous impact. I will tell you, she gained the respect of everyone on her team, everyone across the campus, and the administration, because she knew exactly how to meet every single student where they were. Her numbers in 1 year teaching, her pass rates, and her performance with students' performance in her class outperformed every other. And she had students with a lot of needs, but when you walked in there, you didn't know. I mean, you wouldn't know if this was what kind of class this was. These kids performed at such exceedingly high levels consistently over and over because she engaged them. She knew where they were, and these kids knew that she believed in them. And she was nominated by her entire team, and she is just an outstanding representative for this award because she is certainly showing what excellence in teaching history looks like. So congratulations. Oh, stay here. Just right here. We're going to get pictures of everyone. All right. And last but certainly not least is Miss Lily Peterson. Come on up, Lily. There you go. All right. And Miss Lily Peterson teaches 6th grade world history at Oakleaf Village Elementary. And she's being recognized as our Beginning Teacher Award. And she was, I looked back, and she was actually nominated last year as well. So she's really started her career off in such an exciting and inspiring way. She's a genuine educator with a passion for history, a passion for kids. She runs this dynamic classroom where her 6th graders have the opportunity to immerse themselves in world history through student-led projects. And she's able to show them how the Greeks and the Romans and the Egyptians, all of them, which probably seem so far off to us today, how they impact our lives today. She makes it all so relevant to them as 6th graders. She's a lifelong learner, and she constantly reflects on her practice. She's eager to collaborate with her colleagues at the school and across the district. And I know, especially like during 4th quarter virtual learning, she was an eager participant each week at our Google Meet get-togethers. She is absolutely a true teacher's teacher. The parents love her, the kids love her, and she is exactly the kind of teacher we all hope as parents that our children get the chance to experience. So I think your future is bright. Congratulations. All right, let's bring all 5 up. And so these teachers represent the hard work and dedication you're going to see in social studies classrooms across our district. These are 5 teachers with a huge heart for students.
Y'all act like you like each other. Come on. Come. Oh, just not too close. Okay. Okay, you're good. Congratulations, ladies. Next on the agenda, we will recognize our 2019-2020 retirees, and this will be done by Superintendent Broski.
Yes, I'm filling in today for the retiree ceremony. You know, I will tell you this, one of my greatest pleasures in HR was when a retiree would come back. They were always smiling each and every time. And you know that in the past, we've always tried to get more retirees to attend, and they were usually off on cruises
Right.
and didn't attend, right? So tonight, we kind of have an unusual circumstance. We have 101 retirees, I believe, with 2,340 years
Wow.
of experience in the Clay County school system. So we're trying something different. We want to honor each one. So we created a video kind of scrolling through what they did and their service to the district. So without further ado, go ahead and start the video.
Wow.
Wow.
Amazing.
You know, yeah, I've seen so many people that I work with there that I didn't realize retired. I don't know
Yeah.
about you guys. Like you're
Yeah,
sitting
I
there
was
and a
shocked.
name flashes across the screen, and you're like, "Oh my goodness,
Wait a
they're
minute.
retiring."
Well, especially when
Wow.
I worked with some of their mothers, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh,
Oh, Tina. And now they're
Yeah.
retiring.
I'm like, oh my gosh, they're retiring already. But I do have a question. Do we know who had the most years of service? Seemed like they were going pretty fast, but did I see somebody with 45 years? Or did
I think it was 45 years.
okay?
grief.
And
Which
just
one?
the total of 2340, when I
I
hear
know.
that number, I think, "Oh my
That's
goodness."
a lot of years.
And a
Oh,
lot of smiles on those faces now that they're retired. So,
oh my gosh. That's, hey, congratulations to all of them. Well deserved. I'm like you, Mr. Broski. I saw people that I thought, I didn't know they were retiring. My goodness. Now, now you want to see them and hug well, you can't hug their neck. You can elbow bump, I guess. Okay. Uh, I have something for the next item.
yes, ma'am, I've never seen you down there when I'm up here. So,
Hello? Okay. I'd like to get it where I can face the audience. Is this okay? We have a special presentation that we wanted to make tonight. Um, this is to someone else who is retiring next week. And I'd like for Renalee Paiva to come up here, please. I won't get close to you, but you've got to listen to this, because this was authored by none other than our school board attorney, Mr. Bickner. I am not taking the blame for this one. Okay. We have a beautiful plaque for Renalee, and I want to read what is on the plaque. Quit reading it. Okay. Presented to Renalee Paiva with our deepest appreciation for your dedication as president of Clay County Education Association, August 2013 through July of 2020. Quit reading, because it's going to get good. Your years working as a guidance counselor for middle school children was perfect training for your job as the president of the CCEA. It taught you compassion, tenacity, chutzpah, and the conspicuous, flagrant boldness needed to take a hard stand on issues, to face daunting challenges, and to stand your ground when you were right. You've got guts, and sometimes guts is enough. Well done. You will be missed. Congratulations on your retirement from your Clay County District Schools family. And with this, we hope that every time you look at it, you'll remember us and how much we loved you. And sometimes we love getting your phone calls, and sometimes we didn't. But you want to, well, can we hug? Okay. Here's the hug. Okay, you want to say something?
I think they did this because they didn't want my last speech and what, and what I'm going to go on about. But anyway, truly, the best job I ever had was this one in my entire life. And part of my speech tonight was to say, every one of these school board members I've worked with, and they've worked with me. Even Ashley, see? You know, but I can think of a time in 7 years where every one of you stood with the teachers in different circumstances, some of them saving a teacher's job and voted with that teacher and wouldn't second a disciplinary action when you thought was wrong. In 7 years as president, we never had grievances or arbitration. Part of my speech tonight is fire Dietzen. You don't need them. We work together, the CCEA and the District of Clay County and this school board. And I'm very proud of that. We're not the big bad union. We're not your enemies. We're your colleagues. And I'm very proud to be leaving at this time when it's frightening. It's frightening out there, and I'll say more about that when the CCA talks. But thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Stutter. Thank you, Mr. Broski. Thank you, school board members, and I love and will miss every one of you. Thanks a lot.
Okay, here's what I want to do. I would like the board to come down, and Mr. Broski, we're going to have a group picture, okay?
And you all better been tested, because I won't put this mask on,
I was
but you better
tested.
not get
I was
me
t-
sick.
I was tested this morning.
I'm a caregiver. Be careful.
I just noticed that Miss Gilhausen and I are the only ones not in purple tonight. We have a purple tie and purple. I didn't get the memo. Did you, Miss Gilhausen?
No, I was thinking 4th of July is on the horizon. So I was red, white, and blue.
Okay. There is no school showcase. This is the last call for comment cards. Are there any comment cards? No? Okay. No presentations from the audience, public comments. We'll move for the adoption of the consent agenda. Items pulled to discussion were C20, C22, C36, and C38. I'll entertain a motion for the adoption of the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
All right. I have a motion by Ms. Gilhouse and a second by Ms. Bola. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Okay. Next is the CCEA update. Renali Paiva. You have to be nice now.
We're taking the plaque back.
Hey, we got thick skin. We can handle it. You just go for it.
The lady in waiting is right there waiting. So actually, my last thing is opening schools back up.
Yeah.
It's what's on everybody's mind. It's the elephant in the room, but here's my take and here's the take of CCA. Yes, we need to open schools, but we need to open them safely. We cannot risk the lives of our children or our faculty. Sorry. We need to listen to the doctors, not the politicians. What we need to do is do what the doctors say. And what they say is, yes, all of you wear a face mask. And I'm serious about that. I wear a face mask to protect you from me, not me from you. I'm in a hospital every three weeks. And that's not a good place to be. And we all have to have the respect for each other to model that. We ask our teachers to model things all the time. And I'm asking you to model the same thing. Don't pay attention to our leadership. Notice they put everything on you. They don't want to make this decision. They want you to make the decision. We need gloves. And I know Mr. Brodsky has ordered this stuff. So what I'm saying isn't, a news to him. He knows that. We need PPEs, especially in our self-contained units. Especially. If you ask them what they need, that's what they need. They need shields. They need gloves. They need masks. Those kids aren't going to social distance. They need to be able to control that. And it shouldn't be the teacher has to ask for it. The first day of school, whatever it looks like, should be there for them. We need to social distance. I can't go to Publix without things on the ground. Have we got our schools with stuff on the ground? One-way hallways? One-way staircases? We need to do all that. And I know you're going to have a school board meeting, and I know we're going to talk all that, but I want to throw this out so you have time to digest, because the old way doesn't work. We can't just open our schools. People will die. People will die. And then what? You all will have to live with that. We will have to live with that because we're partners with you. We're not going to leave you. The CCA is not going to leave you. Don't leave us. We have lots of disinfection, lots of hand sanitizers. I heard it. We got all sorts of wipes and everything else. Where's our custodians? Dr. Kemp sit up here for days telling you are 49 custodians short. So you can have all the hand sanitizers you want and all the little spray things you want. Who's doing it? Who's cleaning it? Our custodians can't clean now. Our teachers are cleaning. We can't ask them to do that. We need shields in the media center. We need plexiglasses up. You're running out of time. You have the media center. You have common areas. You have a discussion that has to happen about PE, what's it look like, and art, what's it look like, and music. Let's keep blowing on each other. What's it look like? Those are serious questions you're going to have to ask. Please ask. We need procedures. I saw an email yesterday that our school psychologist has to start retesting again. Do they have PPEs? Shields? Face masks? Anything? We can't just say, go ahead and test. So an email like that goes out and I get 15 calls. What does that mean, start testing again? Bring them into my office? Open them up? What's it mean? We need procedures for everything. If a child gets sick, if a child gets sick now and he throws up, the custodian comes and cleans it up. What if a child gets sick, doesn't throw up? Who's cleaning? Who's sanitizing that chair? Who's sanitizing the thing around them? All the contact they had. Who's taking temperatures? All those are procedural things that you need to ask the questions come July when you have this workshop. We depend on you to do that. What does the parents want? We had a survey that went out, and 40% of the parents said, "I ain't sending my kid." Another 40% of the parents said, "Please take them. Open the school up. They're all yours. Do it." We have 87 teachers over 65 years old. We don't know how many of our teachers are even compromised that are under 65 years old, that are caregivers. So we need to find out from every parent in Clay County what their intention is. Do they intend to send our kids back to school? Their kids back to school? Or do they want to go to CVA? So if you have those numbers, then you can staff with our compromised teachers. And Mr. Brodsky and I had this conversation, but time's running out because you sent a survey out and you got 1,000 responses. You have 38,000 kids counting our charters, right? somewhere around 38 to 40,000, right, Sue? You know, you guys know better than me. You have to get on the phone and call them. You have to know. We can't just let them show up because it might solve some of our problems in social distancing. Because if you got half the class that's not coming back and they want to go CVA, then you got 15. You can do that in a classroom. So you might solve your problem. You're going to solve your staffing problem. You're going to solve your distancing problem. So I'm not saying this to be a pain. I'm saying this because you need to do it now. We need to ask those questions. And lastly, it was just all the things I was going to say. Fire Dietzen, you don't need him. There's no reason he sits on your bargaining team. You will have the same cooperation with Vicki Kidwell than you did with Renly Paiva. I have no doubt about that. We haven't had a grievance. I haven't had one arbitration. You cannot go to any county in the state of Florida and find that out. There isn't a union that hasn't gone to arbitration or to a grievance. And I'm confident to say that. In fact, Dietzen said that when we were in bargaining once. He goes, well, how many grievances did you have this year, Mr. Brodsky? And he looked at him and went, none. How many did you have last year? Mr. Brodsky looked at him and said, none. What's wrong with you? No, what's wrong with you all? We have to work together. We have to work together for our kids. I get on Facebook every day and I have the biggest laugh of my life. Those people out there are crazy. Yeah, I said that. All right, is that on TV? Say it. They're absolutely crazy. They absolutely think we have a contentious relationship. They actually convince each other. I hear them all talking like, you know, little mice, talking with each other and spearing each other on. I like the part about my lucrative retirement. I thought that was good. Pathetic. And, you know, sometimes I think, but I know why you don't. And sometimes I think, well, the, you know, sensible people in Clay County should speak up. But then I see sensible people speaking up, and oh my God, poor them. You know, they were just crucified sitting on Facebook. And it's sad because they badmouth everything we've done, and we just went from a B to an A. Oh, I should say, we didn't have a grievance or arbitration, but we had that little impasse. Just that little. That was kind of fun. I'm looking forward to the next one of those. But anyway, you know, really, we work together. Don't listen to them. Talk to us. Figure out where we're going. And that's what I want to say. We're your teachers. We're your counselors. We're your school psychologists. That's who the CCA is. We're not some I don't know, monster sitting out there. We're you. We teach your children. You know? And I thank God every day that you understand that. They don't, but you do. God bless you. Thank you very much.
Okay, there will not be a CESPA update, I don't think, okay. Superintendent's update and presentations. Mr. Brodsky, it's all yours.
All right, hopefully in this very short 57-slide presentation,
If it's 57 slides, could they put that screen up?
I think
How many slides is it, Terry?
Well, they've got
it's like 30
people.
maybe.
There's got people sitting under
Oh,
it.
well, maybe, well,
So I'm hoping to answer all of those questions and give some light to some serious topics here today. So today I'm going to talk about reopening of schools. A smart restart is what we've hashtagged it. Our summer recovery program, what's going to happen in August, and what our next step are. And I think I'll address almost every issue that Ms. Paiva has brought up in her presentation. So let's talk about the reopening of schools and a smart restart. If you recall, I showed you this particular slide at our board workshop. It talks about a dimmer switch approach to opening up schools. In other words, each step is a building block to opening up schools in August. The governor, of course, had a strong recommendation and a preference for live and in-person education. And the reason for that is nothing can replace a teacher in the classroom. As much as we try with distance learning and other modes of learning, it's just not the same as a teacher in the classroom. So if you look at this particular slide, it talks about step one. Step one is what we're doing right now in June. Our campuses have been open for youth activities. Athletics are going on right now in Clay County School, as well as band is going on.
Is it all right to ask questions in between?
Sure.
Have we had them sign waivers for the youth
Yes,
activities?
yes, we did.
We did.
Okay. For step two, our campuses will be opening July 6th through the 30th for a 75-hour program that I'll talk more about later in depth. And the purpose of the program is to deal with learning loss. If you recall the governor's 146-page slide, over a quarter of it dealt with learning loss. This is a serious issue for educational institutions. When students are not in school, they are not learning, and as a result, learning loss is occurring. It's particularly troublesome for those students that need it the most, the poor students or the students that have less than ability in reading and literacy in particular. And step three is coming back to school on August 11th, right? Under scenario one, which I'll explain a little bit here, for a traditional start, additional safety precautions, modifications in place, and depending on local health data. Of course, we also need to be ready for all kinds of scenarios. So really, when you look at this plan is not one plan, it's three plans. If this happens, this is what we need to do. If this happens, this is what we need to do. And we need to be prepared for all three of those, okay? And that's what we're working on. A lot of people working hard this summer to make that happen. So let's kind of recap. Step one, I thought I'd throw some pictures in there because pictures speak louder. You could see cheerleaders practicing at Green Cove Junior High right now. This is a modern picture. This isn't last year. Kids are on campus right now with coaches and band directors practicing, okay? That's been going on since June 15th. Again, if you look at this as a dimmer switch approach, each step is a step towards opening schools. Step two is our Smart Restart Recovery Program. The governor, when he announced his reopening of school plan, also included in there CARES Act funding for learning loss. So we are opening up a program. It's going to start on July 7th at those schools. You can see them up there: Montclair, Charles E. Bennett, Wilkinson Elementary School, Poe, Swimming Pen, McRae, and SBJ. That program is designed for students who are K-3 that have been identified as lower quartile students in reading and which progress monitoring has shown little growth. We all know that those first 4 years of a child's education are, I'm not going to say the most important, but the literacy skills that they develop there determine a lifelong learner, okay? I'm very proud that the governor has put additional funding for this. We will get that program over. As you can imagine, this is a huge undertaking in a 2-week time frame from the time the governor announces it. I wish the governor had a little more timing with it, but we appreciate the effort to do this. It
Can I-
means...
Can I ask something? too?
Sure.
How are you going to handle transportation and meals? And are there a certain number of kids that can participate? Or
Yes,
I mean,
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So we are going to contact those parents that qualify to see which ones are willing or want to participate. So right at this moment, there's not an exact number that would be there, but in the bus situation, we would anticipate 1 to 2 on a bus. We also, in the cafeteria, 1 to 2 per seat, obviously.
Yeah.
In the cafeteria, we believe plenty of room. We're talking about a maximum of 60 to 80 students at each school site.
Okay.
So this is a targeted program, again, step by step.
Okay.
And this will be the next step in the process.
I have a question in line with that. The transportation, 1 to 2 children per seat, and I'm sure it's families, clusters together.
Right.
Are we leaving every other row or skipping category across?
It's
Are we putting plexiglass up?
We're not putting plexiglass up. It depends on the number of students that are going to be on each route. Because this is a cluster program, these will be students coming from different schools to that school. So it just depends on the number that are in the route. So obviously trying to maximize social distancing to the greatest extent possible for these students. And again, this is a voluntary program for students, but learning loss is a very real thing. And eventually, when all of this is over with, whenever that is, okay, I have no idea when we are still going to have to bring our students to where they need to be. So I'm hoping that parents want to participate in a program that brings their student forward. The governor's allocated money to make this happen, and we should take advantage of that. And again,
What about the liability to the district? Is there any, I know, we're approving something tonight with the ground and facilities use that we're adding a COVID liability section to it. Does that apply to this also?
I don't believe we put a waiver in there, but we could certainly look at putting a waiver in there in the application process with the parent.
All right, thank you.
And then a smart restart for August. First, let me just tell you that there is no doubt that the current situation that we're in is a very challenging situation. We decided, just like many districts, we would use subcommittees to work on individual work. And so we had 13 subcommittees. I kind of shared that with you. And in 2 weeks, we drafted the basic shell of a plan that would be there. These committees consisted of individuals from the school district, the principals, teachers, parents, CCA, CESPA, the Department of Health, Clay County Emergency Management. We had 2 epidemiologists on there, as well as the director of the health department. So we were talking about a large group of people getting together to figure out the best plan, the smart plan to restart schools. And there's many complications. I've worked for the district for 30 years. And when you do a project like this one, it reemphasizes just how complicated the world is and how many facets there are to reopening school. Everything from how to handle our special needs students, our employees, transportation, cafeteria services. There is a lot of moving parts. I'm very proud of the committee. The work that I'm going to, the very brief snapshot that I'm going to share with you today is just that, the snapshot of it. I would anticipate that when the final report is done, I would expect a 45 or better page document detailing what needs to happen. We need to do this with transparency on how to handle every eventuality that may occur to us. Again, realizing that we should anticipate what could happen in this particular scenario.
When do you expect?
In about
the,
a week.
45-page to be completed?
In about a week. We're looking to, we need to collaborate more with our partners in emergency management, the health department, CCA, and CESPA before we release a final document. But we can kind of give you the big picture today, because I know parents want to know the big picture. Right. There's always a race in the public. When one district does something, everybody says, well, what about the other districts, right? Yeah. So I want to give a snapshot, a brief overview, tell you about some of the things we're doing and working on, and then nail down the final version of a more detailed plan. That's kind of the plan. So if you take a look at it, you can see scenario 1, 2, and 3. Scenario 1 is opening up school on August 11th, which is our current date for opening. It's with physical distancing, extra cleaning measures, all kinds of precautions in place. Scenario 2 is with physical distancing as well as a hybrid schedule where students only come certain days of the week in order to lessen the number of students. And scenario 3 is what we did last year in the fourth quarter, When I look at, and I've reviewed probably the draft, because sometimes things come out in the media as a plan, and it's really their draft of a plan. So I'll make it perfectly clear. This is our draft tonight of the plan. And they all center around the same basic concept, which is coming back with increased precautions for student safety, going full speed distance learning, or something in the middle, right? When I looked at every plan that's out there currently, Volusia just finished with their plan. St. John's is almost close. They're very close to finalizing their plan. And I've talked to 8 or 10 superintendents across the state. They all have that same basic structure to it. Because when you think about it, you're either coming back, you're going distance learning, or you're doing something in between. It kind of makes sense that everybody arrived at the same sort of basic concept.
What's the metric that we're using to determine if it's scenario
I'm
1,
gonna
2,
I'm
or
gonna
3?
show you here in a second. So when you look at this is a draft of we want to, first of all, we want to give parents the choice, the option of coming back to the brick and mortar school the way that it's traditionally done, with increased distance learning as well as increased cleaning procedures, and doing everything that we possibly can to protect students and student safety. And then you can see in the pink, that's where you move to substantial cases. In other words, usually the last time the governor went and said, hey, you're closing down schools. And then in between is, what if there's a spike in cases and the health department says, you know what, this is a situation where we need to move to a hybrid model in which we would go ahead and lessen the number of students going to the school setting. In my mind, that should be done by an emergency response team, which would include the health department, emergency management, district officials, and consultation with the school board. All of that is yet to be determined. That's why I said when you come up with a plan, you actually have to have 3 plans. You can't have just one, because we're not really sure what exactly is going to happen on August 11th. So you have to prepare for all of those
Mr. Brodsky,
eventualities.
when we're talking about cases, are we talking about positive tests within the state? Are we talking about the percentage of positive tests in the state? Are we talking about hospitalizations?
Here we're
Death
talking,
rate? What are
the
we?
director of the health department is looking at hospitalizations as well as morbidity rate, as well as other metrics, is
Okay.
what she was
So
looking
it's a
at.
combination.
It's a combination. If you watch the news, there's a flood of information and conflicting information about our current scenario, making it difficult. It's not easy to just say, if you had X percent of cases increase, we're going to do Y as a school system. If life was that easy, it would be easier to do the things that we've done. It's just not that easy. So we need to consider all of those things as we move forward. Our goal is not to shut down schools. Our goal is to open schools, but to do it in a smart, safe way for students. Okay. Clay Virtual School, I filmed a commercial for them. I think it was yesterday. It's every day seems like a new day. And it did, especially in this environment, it's a new day. So, I would say this. I realize that, first of all, we are going to do a ton of safety precautions. I'm going to outline some of them here this evening. And, I'm going to ask for a board workshop, and I'll get to that at the appropriate time. We are going to do a ton of things to protect our children. We're going to do everything that we humanly possibly can. They are our most precious commodity. I recognize that. I'm a parent myself. I totally get it. At the end of the day, we wanted to provide an option for parents if parents still were not comfortable. I totally understand that. We've got 39,000 customers out there in the district, or 40,000 customers, and a certain percentage may not feel comfortable despite what any of us say. Okay? CVA is a recognized, well-run program for students. Okay, there is a little bit of a difference between distance learning, what we did in the fourth quarter, and online learning. Things like academic integrity, grading, prevention of learning loss would occur in that program. It's an awesome program. It's an A-rated school within our district. And we're going to encourage parents that if that is their choice and they want that option, we want to provide that option for them. So the district is still compiling the final draft, and we're still working in collaboration with all of our partners. But we kind of come up with a one-sheeter, if you will. This is kind of like the Cliff Notes, the cheat sheet, whatever you want to call it, from the days that you were in school. Okay. So when you take a look at this, we're talking about screening at home. And we talked about this at our board workshop because I wanted to get the direction of the board related to a couple of issues. One is the use of temperature checks, right? And even today, I had a nice email from a parent. I've gotten quite a few emails related to opening of school and suggestions. And this was from a nurse who basically was pointing out that temperature checks are not as effective as people think. If 1/3 of all cases are asymptomatic, okay? And we also know, and we hope not, and we want parents to be partners in this process, but we hope that, we hope that parents would not give their child fever-reducing medication and then send their child to school. So when you start to do the math, and even the director of the health department, as well as the doctors that were on the panel, they looked at it as it's a 50-50 as to whether a temperature check is an accurate view of a person's illness, given the virus. So we had come up with a plan for screening, and quite frankly, this is going to take everybody to become more educated. We're going to have to help educate parents and students relative to the best practices so that we can keep everyone safe.
Mr. Broski, are you
Yes,
saying
ma'am.
that you're not recommending temperature checks?
We are not recommending temperature checks, but that's something that the board did discuss in the last workshop, and several board members had
We
said.
actually did, we discussed masks, that we didn't want to write it into policy, but we didn't come up with any definite direction as far as temperature checks or not, because I personally think that they should be required and that we should do it, even though it will be difficult with everybody coming on
Right.
campus and having, and the discussion, if you remember, was point of entry, and you said it would bottleneck and getting everybody in. But I feel that if they're doing it at hospitals, they're doing it at doctors' offices, I mean, I think it's important that the parents know that we're doing everything possible for the safety of their children. And maybe it's not 100% accurate. Maybe it won't detect everything, but I would rather err on the side of caution than to not do it at all and then have something happen where we could have maybe prevented and sent that child home. So I'm going on record. I believe in temperature checks. I don't know about the rest of the board, but we did discuss it. You said it would create a bottleneck, and we said,
Yep.
you actually said maybe we could have the teachers do it at the entrance to the classroom, and we said, one of us did, maybe it was Mrs. Bullock, that it would be better to do it at the entrance of the school so nobody is entering, so we know before everyone comes in that
Right.
they have been checked. So, I mean, I know you have a committee, and when we discussed the mask, we did say we didn't want to write a policy, that we didn't want to set policy, but I think we need to do everything possible to keep these children safe. Thank you.
Arriving at school, it's talking about students arriving at school, and the recommendation, one of the things that we'll do is we'll survey our parents, of the parents that are going to ride the bus. Some parents may choose to not have their child ride the bus. So it's important that we survey each child, each parent, making sure that we can, in fact, we believe that with courtesy riders out of the picture, that it looks like it's 2 individuals per seat by Mr. Sweat's estimation.
Could you explain that to me, though? And I'm sorry I'm asking more questions, but are we doing left and right together, or are we going to go every other seat on the right so they're staggered?
Every seat,
Every seat will have
two
people.
students in a, in a,
So that doesn't
in
seem
a
like it's
seat.
really any reduction.
Well, the reduction would be the reduction of the courtesy riders. And also, when we survey the parents, we'll see how many parents are going to actually ride the bus.
Okay.
So,
And I
yeah,
understand some may not come back, like Ms. Pine
Right.
said, and they may alleviate our problem, but what about shorter routes and using the extra buses to hire more bus drivers, or doubling back and not putting as many? I mean, I'm thinking, how many children would be on a bus with two in every seat? How many does that hold?
I think there's 24, so 48.
48 kids on a bus. That's no distancing at all for any of them. I mean, I could see maybe if we put a shield up, and did every other seat so that there's nobody on your left or the right, but unless it's a family straight
Right.
across in that aisle, but I don't see that that's taken any precautions. I mean, it's just
I
me,
can-
but
I
I
can,
know it's
I
a-
can
it's a
assure you
draft.
that,
I get
that Mr. Sweat has looked at every angle related to this and has also collaborated with all 67 transportation directors. They have a group meet that they're involved with in order to figure this out.
Right,
I
but
know
we're
that in other
responsible for our
districts,
kids.
I know that in other districts, when they looked at this particular issue, they were looking at, they basically said that it would require another 200 buses, an additional 200 employees in order to make that work. And sometimes when you look at it, it's just not feasible to do that.
And how many extra buses do we have? I wasn't it at
40.
one point in time, it was 80 buses that we had extra?
I think it's 40.
You need to turn your mic on.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So there's 40 extra buses is what Mr. Sweat told me, and they use those to rotate, right now, the current buses in and out of service
For
on their
maintenance.
monthly inspections.
So maybe we need to look at adjusting our start times and have the buses double back so that, we get all the high school and then, elementary and
Right.
junior high start a little later so that there's not 48 kids on a bus. I mean,
Right.
I
I
think-
wouldn't be putting my child on that bus.
I think typically they're about 65 kids because they normally had 3 to a seat. at
Yeah, they normally
elementary.
have 3.
See, so
it
they're
cut
about
down to 2, yeah.
17 students less, it sounds like,
Yeah.
on each bus.
Well,
That's the
you
estimate.
know,
Still, no social distancing.
this is a draft right now, and I think there's a lot of things that we don't know, like how many kids are going to
Exactly.
come back to school. I have a gut feeling that there's going to be a lot of play virtual students. I think that right now this is a draft of a plan, but I don't believe all those kids are going to come back to school. From comments that I have seen in social media, there are parents who are just not ready, and that is their right. And I don't think I'm going to get really excited right now about, are we going to have 2 here and 2 here, or are we going to stagger them? I think that's getting a little, it's this isn't the time. This is a draft of his proposed plan, and then we will nail it down a little more. And then you said next week you'd
I
have
think
more
you'll
of a
see,
plan.
I think you'll see towards the end of this presentation, the surveying of parents part
Right.
as to when
That's
we
what
would
I'd
have
like
the
to see.
data in order
Right.
to make those.
And
those
I
kinds of
would also point
decisions.
out that in your presentation, you said under bus transportation that face masks would be recommended.
Recommended,
Yeah.
so
So I think that in that event, since social distancing isn't
Yeah.
possible,
Yeah.
a face mask would be appropriate.
but then
absolutely.
because it's recommended, if they all get on without them, we're responsible. So do we want to write a policy that says face masks are now going to be required?
Not right now.
You did have it on there for,
It says
Recommended.
recommended, not
oh, it did say
mandated.
recommended.
It
okay.
says recommended. And I'm thinking about it from a parent. You have children in
I do.
school, and I had 3 in school. We all had kids there. I would be very concerned. And so, as a board member, we should all feel that we have to do everything we can to make sure they're going back safe.
Of
And
course we are.
I appreciate that this is a draft.
Yep.
But this is our only opportunity to talk about it because we haven't had routine updates. your team has been working on it,
Yep.
which we know they're working hard, and I'm not
They're working
criticizing,
hard.
but this is all new to all of us, so
Sure.
we've
And-
got questions.
And we'll have a board workshop too to answer all
Yeah.
questions. So when it comes to physical distancing on campus, I think that everyone needs to realize that school's going to look different, no matter how you slice it, whether you're talking about keeping students in a cohort group, whether you're talking about lunch being different in the sense that not all students would go to the cafeteria. I can easily see in some of the schools that I went to, some students being in the cafeteria, some students being in the gymnasium, some students being outside. Again, what's going to happen is there's going to have to be a social distancing plan for each school, for each site, because each site is uniquely different in what it can do. So when we have principal training, which is mid-July, that's what we'll be doing, is figuring out the plan for social distancing for all kinds of events, how students come to school, how students leave school, what happens when we go to lunch, what happens when we change classes, all going in the same direction, for example. All of those things are things that are going to be addressed in the final plan. Some of them, though, are site-specific to each individual school. So what have we purchased so far? What have we done so far? I think the question was, what are we purchasing? So far, we've done the following. We've purchased electrostatic cleaners. Electrostatic cleaners are kind of what you see when you see people fogging a room, except electrostatic is the latest and greatest. He's holding up one
Is that
over
one?
there. We're not giving a demonstration here, but so this contraption has an electrostatic charge which enables the chemical to stick to or adhere to surfaces. It's considered to be the latest and greatest technology related to cleaning, and so that's part of it.
Just a quick question. Is it, Mr. Fossa, you had come up to the podium and you wiped it down with a to sanitize it. I was just going to ask, which would be more effective? Do we know? Do we know if it's, I have no idea.
Because it's electrostatic, what's neat about it is that it gives it a negative charge. So what it does, instead of just falling straight down, it envelops.
Mhm.
So if it would go up underneath the flowers, but let somebody gets here, reach out and just let their hand.
Right.
This thing, I've done it, I've seen it work in the office where it kind of matriculates over, so it comes up underneath as well.
Which would be more effective than wiping it
Than
down
wiping it down.
necessarily.
Sure.
How expensive are those things? How much?
Wow.
600 each?
How many per school?
One per
One
school.
per
it
school
says, and
so
4
far.
for the district. I have a question. Is it dangerous to electronics and that, like you would spray it up there? Okay, it's not. It's not a problem for that kind of stuff.
So the computers won't get, yeah.
So in addition, hand sanitizer, there's enough hand sanitizer for every classroom. Also, in addition, standing hand sanitizers. You ever see those like metal poles with the sanitizer on it for each walkway? In addition, hand sanitizer dispensers for each school bus, because you have to remember the school bus too. Touchless thermometers, so far 2 per school. That of course we can adjust. For masks, 6,000 of the disposable masks, but over 100,000 reusable masks and 50,000 face shields, the plastic face shields, due to our partnership with Emergency Management and FEMA. So that's what we've done so far. We've also looked at, here are the things we're looking at doing based on the results of the task force. Renali actually touched on all of these, I believe. School signage for social distancing, hygiene, hallway directional stickers, those stickers on the floor that she mentioned, those reminders to folks to social distance. One of the things that is the biggest misnomer that people have is that schools are institutions that are set up for people to get together. It's what we naturally do. And it's natural that students want to get closer to one another. So those constant reminders are a necessary part of the practice of teaching people social distancing. And then, of course, enforcing and modeling are two other things that have to occur. Additional PPE for schools, such as N95 masks for the health room, hand sanitizers and stand dispensers, gloves, poly cover gowns, touchless thermometers, additional. Chromebooks. So one thing that has to happen is the district has to be agile enough to switch to a distance learning environment in a very quick fashion. Our teachers did a great job during the fourth quarter of doing that, but in the process, one of the issues is you need to have enough Chromebooks in order to pull that off, where a school closure might actually be as a result of one school at a time. So all of that are things that have been considered. And of course, extra of the,
Question,
yes, ma'am.
did we not get 2,500 Chromebooks back?
We did not. In fact, I think we have 2,500 to replace,
Oh, wow.
or they were broke.
And are we looking at plexiglass for the foyer, the front office when you come into school?
Many schools, I was just at
Teachers.
Oakleaf High School yesterday, they've got it totally glassed off. But we're looking at those kinds of partitions for things like the media center, circulation desk,
Right.
and those areas. Yes.
What about in the classroom where the teacher's going to be teaching? Are we looking at anything like that to
No, we're not.
separate them?
One of the challenges with those plexiglass things, because I know one other district that did that, of course, you would have to not only install that, but you would have to sanitize that.
Right.
And that could make a situation even more challenging.
From a teaching perspective, it would probably make sense to have the full cover shield,
Right.
the plastic shield.
Because you're moving
And I
around so
know
much.
that we
Right.
can, I know that those can be made with 3D printers, et cetera. There was one part where it said all of the chairs will be facing forward in one direction. And in a typical classroom, that's not going to stay that way for long, only because you do collaborate. I mean,
Right.
it's
Or they're
the
going to have
group,
to.
and you were going to have to, the
Yeah.
teachers are going to have to come up with ideas
Mm-hmm.
to collaborate. Moving excess furniture out of the classroom. I'm thinking of my classroom and I'm thinking, okay, well, bookshelves
Mm-hmm.
would be considered excess furniture. File cabinets might be considered excess furniture. That's equipment that is used. I mean, the students check out books, or the students want to be able to read, or the students, it's going, all of that you've talked about, Mr. Brodsky, is going to be new and different, not just for the teachers, but also for the students. And it's going to be something that will be a learned activity
Right.
at the very beginning. Similarly, on the buses that you were mentioning, getting on a bus, I mean, we've all ridden buses. We've all done the school bus rides to see what they're like. And kids, they're social beings. We're all social beings. Can you imagine the first day of school, getting on a bus and being told, okay, your mask is on, you're facing that direction, you're sitting here, don't look at your friend, don't talk to your friend, you're going to be sitting facing forward, and you haven't seen these people since March
March.
13th.
Good luck with that.
And it's like, whoa, it's going to go boom. And even if you attempt to have this child sit in this seat and 2 seats back is going to be another child, and do the double backs and do the extra buses and do whatever we can to shorten those. I guess going back to Ms. Paiva's first comment, we have no idea who's going to be in our
Right.
classrooms.
I agree with you.
We have
The
no
face
idea
of
how many
education has
students are going to
changed.
be there.
It's not the same.
And
Education will not look the same again.
it won't look the same, but so many of these children will act the same.
Right.
And that's going to be next to impossible.
Okay, so let's talk about next steps, okay? So we need to finalize that first draft that we're talking about, and we're going to request a workshop in mid-July in order to review those, and I'll ask the board chair to do that whenever it's
Do you
appropriate.
want to set it now?
You can. I can go through the rest of the presentation while you guys are looking at your calendar. So we're going to send a second survey to parent with their intention to bring back, to come back to brick and mortar or for Clay Virtual Academy. You know, what is your option? So we look at the survey as being tied to the student and the student's number, and that each parent would respond. Okay, it can't be you get 50% of people saying something. We need an answer from everybody, because don't forget, if in fact a large number of students do that, there's a reallocation process, and so we're looking at, you know, by that week of mid-July, we need that information in order to be able to provide the services that everyone wants by August 11th. It takes that long to get that organized to do that. Then you could see we also need to survey our teachers. What would they like to do, you know, coming back? You know, some teachers might have underlying medical conditions. They might be over 65 and are concerned, all of those kinds of things. So this is a huge, huge project. And then the last part is what we're talking about related to the buses, which is to survey each parent that rides the bus currently in order to determine what the load is going to be on those buses. And the only way to do that is for a parent to complete the actual survey. For example, I might be a parent that lives 3 miles away from the school, and now, in these times, I'm going to drop the child off on my way to work. Okay, but we want, and we would appreciate an answer from parents so that we can go through all of the planning that it takes to provide the very best service for our students in the most safe manner that we can. And so with that, I'm done.
Okay. They want us to set a workshop for mid-July.
Mr. Broski, would you mind emailing the board
Sure.
members a copy of your?
Yeah, would you send
slideshow?
that to all of us,
Thank you.
I
please?
appreciate it.
We have
Thank
our graduations on the 17th.
Yeah, and
Do
let
we
me
wanna
ask,
meet before
yeah.
that, or-
do y'all want to meet before graduation on the 17th?
No,
I
it
mean,
would have to
I
be-
meant that week, during that week before, the
The week-
13th through the 17th. And Mr. Broski, I wanted to ask you something too about graduation.
Yes, ma'am.
What are the plans for the 17th as
So-
far as what are graduations going to look like?
So our final meeting with emergency management is Monday at
Okay.
2 o'clock. At that time, we're going to kind of look at the current conditions to decide how many people could potentially attend. So each principal will have a diagram of their stadium and how many feet those stadium seats are, and we're going to plot out how many people could actually attend.
Okay.
You know, I wish we were in a different position.
Yeah.
You know, when we were talking about this like a month ago, and I kept saying, hey, let's wait till we get closer.
Right.
You know, and the hope was that the conditions would get better
Get better.
as time went on.
It seems to be getting
And so,
worse. Yeah.
you know, I can say without a doubt that there'll be a limited number of people that can go. The
Right.
exact number and the plans for that will be released by midweek next week.
Yeah, I'm receiving a lot of calls from teachers and from
Yep.
parents
Yeah,
about,
wanting to
you know,
know.
wanting to know and who can they invite and that kind of thing.
Because they're
So,
making, you know, if
Make arrangements.
grandma and grandpa can't come, I know my grandson, they're only allowed, he's at Stanton and Duval, and he's only allowed to bring 2 people to
Right.
his 9:30 a.m. graduation.
I can promise you that
So,
we will
grandma can
stream it
come.
regardless of the number of people.
Right.
And I know that that's no consolation for in person, but these
so
are
this Monday
super.
at 2, you
That's-
think there'll
that's
be?
our-
You'll let us know.
We'll know probably by Tuesday. We're
Okay.
meeting Monday at 2.
Because I was just thinking, everybody's wanting to know what is graduation going to be like. And I was sitting there thinking, I don't know, we don't know. So
What-
you'll
So-
kind of give us.
Yeah, we'll
okay.
give you an update.
But won't, and each high school may be somewhat different as well because
That
of
is
the size
correct.
of the graduating
Less
class.
graduates
True.
at
So the best
Keystone.
idea for the public would be to pay attention to their school's Facebook page,
Right.
as well as any announcements coming from the school itself, I would assume.
And I'm
Yes,
sure the
ma'am.
school district's going to have it all over social media and everywhere. All right, look at the week of July 13th through 17th. Is there any day that, well, it's still iffy, that Thursday night is still iffy for we can't do
We
it that Thursday night.
And I'm
Well,
not
we would-
available Thursday morning, the 16th.
Afternoons are better for me if we can
Afternoon?
meet 3 o'clock or later.
Okay.
I'm good.
Monday, Tuesday, or
Tuesday,
Wednesday
or-
Not
afternoon?
Monday.
That would work.
Not Monday?
Not Monday.
All right.
Tuesday, Wednesday,
How about Tuesday or Wednesday afternoon?
That'd be fine.
Either one.
Okay,
Wednesday afternoon.
Ms. Bullock, do you have a
Tuesday afternoon? That's fine.
Tuesday? What time's good for you, Ms. Gilhousen?
As long as it's after 3.
Tuesday's good for
After
me.
3?
Mhm.
Mr. Brodsky, do you have a preference with staff and so forth?
No, I will do whatever the board needs.
Oh, listen to this. Oh, my.
You want to say
Okay,
3:30
you want to say 3:30 on,
on the Tuesday, the 14th?
are we on Tuesday, the 14th at 3:30? And it'll be here? You want it in here or at the professional
I
development?
think it's probably better to be here. It's such an important thing
Okay,
we're talking about.
yeah,
The
some people
community
may
might
wanna
want
come.
to-
Okay, 3:30 on Tuesday, July 14th.
And before we move on, I still had one other question about your presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
And Dr. Legecko mentioned the other day that we're getting CARES Act funding. What
Correct.
was the amount that she told us?
Total is 3.6.
3.6, and that's after sharing it with charter and private schools?
Correct.
Okay. So it's 3.6, and do we anticipate that that will be enough to cover
It'll be the
some of, most of these expenses?
most of the things that you saw on that list for sure.
But I'm anticipating a lot more.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
gonna have
yeah.
to go on that list.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Could I ask a question as well? We
Yes, ma'am.
received an email this week from a mother who gave great ideas. And one of the comments that she made was, parents may not feel comfortable at the beginning of the year sending their child to school, and so they may sign up for CVA. 9 weeks into the year, things might be looking really good.
Yeah.
Do they have the opportunity then to transfer into their home school or,
We were looking at it as a semester.
okay, so by
commitment.
semester versus
Yes.
by quarter, got it?
Right. And that has to do with awarding of credit.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That has to do with the awarding of credit as to the rationale
Yeah,
for that.
man.
And
you
in
have
addition
teachers
to
and then
that,
you
that would then give us time.
To reorganize the
interim to
allocation
reorganize, et
at
cetera.
that time, yes.
The
ma'am.
other concern, and this, I'll just say this comes from my daughter, who teaches high school courses that are not necessarily the type of course that you can take online. And so she will be, and I know we're going to have a number of teachers who are going to be facing the fact that they won't have a choice. That the course that they're teaching is going to be, if there's a particular course, she teaches yearbook journalism, newspaper, as well as digital design. So she's looking at her classroom and thinking, okay, I can deal with, the same group of students for a variety of classes. However, a lot of those aren't allowed to be, or can't really be taken online because they're electives. So if there are teachers that are in that area as well, here again, stepping up and doing whatever we can to provide them with the PPE equipment that they need to feel safe. And I know that that's working individually with each teacher almost in many respects, but just working as closely with the faculty as we can to make certain that they feel good about coming back to the classroom as well. And the only other comment I have is the temperature, the thermometers. Having worked in an elementary school for a lot of years, you realize that the nurses in the elementary schools are the first line of defense. They're the first medical person that a lot of families use, literally use as their medical provider. And so another thought in the planning of all of this, if we were to do a temperature check, we would need additional personnel in that area. We're going to need additional nurses. We're going to need additional clinicians to be able to step up and help as well. So just another thought along those lines.
As
So-
well as maintenance. We're
Well,
gonna need-
but educating the parents as well as to
Right.
what we have available that, if taking the temperature at home makes sense to a lot of folks, but I bet if we surveyed our students and our parents, there's not a thermometer in the house. You know,
But
so
there's a lot that we're gonna have to hire.
that's at the school, that's at the clinic, so.
Bus drivers, custodians, probably medical assistant or something along that line, you're right. And who knows what we're gonna think of in 2 more weeks.
That's exactly right.
I mean, this is such a huge undertaking, but we'll get it done.
Well, Mr. Roski, thank you for the update.
Hey, you're welcome.
Oh, boy. It makes you lay in bed at night and think of all the things that we haven't thought of yet. But we'll get it. We'll get it. Okay, we will move now to the discussion items. D2, Human Resources Special Actions. There were no special actions. Next is C20, approve advertisement and notice of public hearing to adopt proposed revisions to School Board Policy 5.02A, Business Affairs Purchasing, 5.03B, Business Affairs School Activity Accounts, and 5.02C, Business Affairs Use of School Buildings, Grounds, and Equipment. This item was pulled by Mrs. Karakis. Ms. Karakis?
First of all, before we discuss, we're supposed to have a motion and a second.
I'll move approval.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Ms. Gilhousen, a second by Ms. Bola. Now you have the floor, Mrs. Karakis.
Thank you. So we had a workshop right after our agenda review workshop last week where we went over this policy. And primarily, I have an issue with 5.02A, the school board policy, the purchasing policy, business affairs purchasing policy. And I brought it to the attention of the board members and the superintendent that I don't agree with the limit that we're setting for contracts to come to the board. I believe anything over $50,000 should come to the school board. It would seem that I was the only one that thought that, and this new policy is being changed to say anything over 100,000 will come to the board. I also didn't agree with the people who are authorized to sign contracts. I feel very strong that it should be the superintendent and his designee should be the assistant superintendent of each department, not supervisors and directors. And so because I don't agree with that, I can't support approving this. So I pulled it for that reason so that I can go on record of saying, no, I don't agree with it, and I intend to vote no.
Okay, is there any other discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, say no.
No.
Motion carries 4-1 with Ms. Karakis dissenting. The next item is C22, approve advertisement and notice of public hearing for revisions to the Clay County District Schools Use of Facilities, Use of Grounds Manual. This item was pulled by Mrs. Karakis. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
I'll second. Oh, go ahead.
Who, Ms. Bullock? I have a motion by Ms. Gilhousen, a second by Ms. Bullock. All right, Ms. Karakis, it's yours.
Thank you. First, I want to compliment Dr. Legecko and her team for addressing this. You guys did a great job with it. And I pulled it because I figure if we're making changes, we might as well rip off the Band-Aid and go all the way. And so you had given us a comparison chart of surrounding counties. And for the facility use, they are charging a lot more than what we are. And I understand that you didn't want to go, too high, but if you looked at that insert that they gave us that had what other districts, Alachua County, an example was if you are going to rent the cafeteria at Fleming Island High School and use the stage, we're changing the price from $60 for 2 hours to $70 for 2 hours, whereas Alachua County is charging $550 for 3 hours. So there is a big difference. And I appreciate that you're, as Dr. Legecko said, she's trying to be compassionate to the community. So I understand that. I think the part that I would like us as a board to address, and I have every intention of approving this, so I'm not opposed to any of it. But if you all remember 6 months ago when this room flooded, it was because it was rented out for, I don't even remember what. It might have been a church service on a Sunday. And they used the 2 computer labs for professional development for the nurseries for their kids, which is fine. They, that's rented out cafeterias all the time. But I don't believe that the boardroom should be rented out. And I think the rooms for professional development should probably be kept off guard, off the rent out list, the list also. So I would just like us to, this room and professional development should not be part of Fleming Island High School anyway. And Mr. Pittman does a good job of, renting out what needs to be, but this should be handled through Dr. Legutko. But I don't think we should be, after doing all the repairs, and I think they had to replace the wall, like 2 feet up the sides, all the carpet, and there was insurance, it was covered, but we were out of this room for 6 weeks at least that we couldn't use it. So I would like us to put something in this manual that stipulates that, the boardroom, I don't know how you feel about media centers, but certain areas should
Or
not
off
be.
limits, I agree.
They should be off limits. And I had a teacher call me about this, and she said her room has been used repeatedly for nursery on a Sunday at whatever elementary school, and nasty diapers had been left there. So, a couple of weeks later, she went in there on a Sunday and sat in her classroom and said, no, you can't use my classroom as a nursery. So stuff is being used, and so I think we need to be very aware of teachers' property, because most of the stuff in the classroom, the teachers are purchasing with their own money, and nobody should be coming in on the weekend using it, rearranging it, or whatever. So that's the one addition that I would like to see added to this. I did talk to Mr. Bickner, and he said, absolutely, the board has the authority to say what can and cannot be rented out. So that's where I'm at.
Are
I
you
just-
saying the teacher training center here not to be rented out ever?
I don't think it should be. I mean, maybe for an award ceremony or
Well,
something
we
like
have the
that.
Take Stock in Children
And-
thing in here each year, and
I think that's
it's
fine.
well taken care
But
of.
you're here. There's school
I'm
staff
here,
here
yeah.
at that time. Other staff is so,
I mean, I just hate to say flat no,
Right.
because there are going to be things that come up that I don't want to shut off
right.
the ability
Right.
And I agree with
to
that.
do that, because things
Right.
may come up where
Which-
we need to be able to rent this room out.
Which is
I'm-
why I think it should
don't
go
want
through
it
Dr.
flooded, don't
Legutko.
get me wrong, but
Mhm.
I just don't want to put up a brick wall there.
Right.
Right.
I agree, and I think we should have some leverage. For example, if I decide I want to have a 6th grade graduation party in here for my granddaughter and 25 kids.
No.
That's right. So,
Right.
but yet I'll say, oh,
Yes.
wait a minute though, they rent it out. I've seen it rented out.
Right. Yeah.
So I think we ought to have some kind of disclaimer that said, if it's not appropriate for the room then it shouldn't be
Right.
utilized for that. So, I mean, like in the Take Scott, that's a different set of
Yeah.
So,
sort-
Mr.
And
Bickner,
it's-
can you think of language that would address, and I didn't ask you to come up with language, so I know I'm calling on you off the cuff.
Yeah.
I think that, is this on? I think that it would not be difficult at all to create language that would limit it to things that were, that promoted the district's goals,
Okay.
okay? And that would exclude things that were not related in some way to the education of children.
Something that's like
in the
student-centered?
district. Yeah, I can do that, and it's,
Okay.
Well,
yes.
Can you think of some words that you could put in there now that would be so we could go ahead and approve this
Well,
item?
you can go ahead and approve it with whatever changes that I add to, in conjunction with Dr. Legatko and Mr. Roski.
Okay,
Because what you're doing is when you're putting something for advertising, you can still change it right here.
okay.
Right.
And so you can still approve, and I can put language together that we could have.
Okay, because this
Quickly.
is the advertising and notice of
Right.
public hearing, so we can do that,
It's-
okay.
That's for next August. That's for August the 8th.
And
is when
can we
we're
also
advertising.
make sure that this whole professional development side of this ground, Fleming Island High School's grounds, this whole section is handled through Dr. Legutko and not the principal?
And in the past, it has been. There was a time
Okay.
right after this was built, because it was built with
Right,
money that wasn't just a
Right.
school district, it was built for a
Right.
specific purpose.
Right.
And it was governed and supervised by one individual, and he had the calendar, and he's the one that set everything in here. And I think that that's easy to include as part of
All
that.
right.
So, and I will
Thank you.
send out what I've put together after it's been looked at by Dr. Legatko and
Okay.
Mr. Broski, I'll send it to the board members so you know what
I
to do.
appreciate
Okay, and
that.
Dr. Gutto, did you want to say something?
Yes, thank you. As we're making these changes, there is one, a change I would like to bring your attention to in the manual. It's Exhibit B, use of rental fees. There is a section that's sort of not there. Because this is the final draft or the final document, I would like to add, on the very bottom, if you're looking at it, it's the utilities and equipment. On the very bottom, the last line, I would like to add mandatory COVID-19 cleaning products at $9.50 per hour of cleaning required. So, I mean, that is in my temporary manual. It just did not get in there, so I want to be clear that that needs to be in there as well.
Yeah, it is here.
Okay,
It's not
so,
anyone
Mr.
that-
Bittner,
yeah.
we have a motion and a second, so we can go ahead and, do we need to go back and amend that motion? Okay, Ms. Gilhousen, it was your motion and seconded by Ms. Bullock. Would you like to amend your motion?
Sure, I'll amend my motion to include Dr. Legutko's addition.
And
Mr.
And
Bittner's.
what's the language? I'm curious,
Yeah.
what are we specifically?
Add language which clarifies the uses for which PTC can be written.
Okay,
okay.
so moved.
Okay, are you agreeable with your second, Ms. Bullock?
I am, and my other comment on all of this was that, you know, especially where we have electronics and things like that, I mean, I can't even imagine
Oh,
that would
yeah.
be used for
Yeah.
a nursery and that kind
Oh.
of thing. I mean,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, any further discussion?
Yes, about, Ms. Karakis, you mentioned something about the new fees. At what point, I'm in agreement with that.
Yeah.
Because we are charging nothing
I know.
We aren't.
for the use of our cafeterias, and I know that they are used. Do we have a guesstimate as to what we want to do with the new fees, or do we ask Dr. Legutko?
Well,
to
she's
come
being
up?
nice. She's
is.
like, she's
Well, I
having
know. Well,
compassion
I'm
on the
saying,
community. I'm
when
like, we
when
need to charge
consider
more.
some of these other, I mean, even Broward is,
I
I mean,
know.
everybody's more expensive than us. So
I agree.
at what point do we make those changes, I guess is my question.
We could make them now, or we could do like Dr. Legutko said, and in the conversation we had, she said, let's give it a year and see what additional costs there might be that this isn't covering.
I'm in agreement with that, just
And then
because
bring it back.
that's a big jump in price, and
True.
there are a lot of people who faithfully rent from us, and I think
Yes.
to
Yes.
jump the price that
Yeah.
quickly would be unfair to
So
them.
And
keep
we
it
don't
this way for a
necessarily have
year
to go
and
that
then
high.
come up with, okay.
Right. And we, when we're looking at it, we might see that we just want to raise it another $10 or $20 next year,
Ease,
not
ease.
the
ease.
550 that I want. But
Well,
you
let's-
guys are laughing at me.
Madam
If I
Chair.
may address the board, can you hear me? Is mine off? Yes. If I may address the board, the new fees, if you look at it, there are a lot of fees in there that hasn't been charged in the past.
Yes.
So when you really look at what they are going to pay based on the base price, and then of course the additional personnel that will be needed, as well as the utilities and the equipment, and of course the additional COVID, as long as COVID remains around, it's going to add up. So again, my recommendation is that we look at what we're doing for this year. And then, of course, as we go through the year, we'll find out whether or not, you know, the fees are applicable at this time. And of course, we have the option, you, the board, can change it at the end. Each year, we can bring it a modification to the manual as well as to the policy if necessary.
And actually, we can bring it back at any time. We don't have to wait a full year.
Well,
Mr.
you could
Bickner?
also, I was going to suggest you could also put, since you're changing things, you could also make, part of the manual, you could put a clause in there that says it has to be brought back within 1 year for review and revision.
Okay.
That's up to you.
Do we
if you
want to
wanna do
add that we have an annual review of this for the future, for future boards and all that?
I, d-
Or,
I don't think that's necessary.
right?
We can bring it up
Okay.
anytime.
I did, just another, I know a lot of places that rent, because I'm on a rental committee for our women's club. I mean, we charge a deposit. And so if something happens, like in a classroom or something, and, or I mean, in our case, if something happens to our club, they don't get that deposit back. We keep that deposit. So that might be something to think about too for, for somebody who's renting, especially if you go in and you find out it's not left like it's supposed to be. Yeah.
Is that in here?
Well,
There is a
I
deposit
wouldn't-
required in here? All right,
Yeah.
good
Perfect.
girl.
I started to say I'd want more than a deposit. If they came in and really messed it up, I'd expect them to pay for it.
No,
for
they
the
do,
damage.
and they have insurance, which is
Right.
what happened
Yeah.
here when the room
I mean,
flooded.
not a
And I think,
deposit's not
I
gonna
think
get
we
it.
should definitely point out that we have many faithful, wonderful partners who
Right.
rent from us regularly.
Absolutely.
Oh,
And,
absolutely.
And we're
use
not
our
trying to
facilities, and they
kill 'em,
they
yeah.
give back as much as,
Right.
as
Right.
they borrow. So
And in all honesty, most of them are not leaving it in a
No.
mess, or not at all. I mean, they're
Right.
taking great care of it, treating it like it's their own house, probably better.
Right.
Because it's not, so we are aware of that.
I know churches that have adopted
Right.
classrooms and really lavished things on them from
Certainly.
using
Yes,
the
they
classroom.
have.
So I
Absolutely.
think it's
Yeah.
important that we point that out too.
Okay, is there any more discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, next, D3, adopt superintendent's memorandum in support of declaration of emergency and approve the emergency adoption implementation of the use of facilities and grounds manual, temporary, including a release of liability re COVID-19 infection. I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
This is a two-step procedure. It's going to take two motions. The first one is a motion to adopt the superintendent's memorandum, which gives out and lays out all of the reasons for a declaration of emergency. And if you move that and approve that, then you have declared the emergency to exist, which is a requirement.
And then go for the rest of it.
And then-
Okay.
Yes.
I'll entertain a motion to declare it an emergency.
So moved.
I'll second.
Have a motion by Ms. Bola, a second by Ms. Gilhousen. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Now, I'll entertain a motion, the other half of it. Mr. Wickner, how should they state that motion?
Motion to approve the.
I move for the other half of it.
Hey, there
That's
we go.
close. Emergency to approve the emergency adoption or implementation of the use of facilities and grounds manual, temporary, including a release of liability regarding
it.
COVID-19 infection for immediate implementation.
I'll
Okay.
move approval.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Caracas, a second by Ms. Bola. I'm sorry, that was fast. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. Whew. Next, D4, public hearing to approve as advertised proposed revisions to School Board Policy 5.02A, Business Affairs Purchasing. So I will open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to address this item? If not, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
I'll second it.
Have a motion by Ms. Gilhousen, a second by Ms. Bola. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. Oh, are you voting for me? I just completely forgot to vote on the computer. Okay. I just happened to think I hadn't voted the last 2 or 3 times on the computer. Oh, jeez. Okay. All right. Are you good now, Miss Honora? Okay. Okay. C36, 2019-20 SREF Casualty Safety, Sanitation, Relocatable, and Fire Safety Inspection, item pulled by Mrs. Studdard, and I'm going to turn it over to, was it Mr. Bickner I'm supposed to turn this over to?
I can do it.
Or,
I'm
well, let's
going
get a
to-
motion
I'm going
first.
to ask some questions. I'm going to tell you what we need to do.
Okay,
But I
all
think
right. This is,
Ms.
this
Ellis
needs some
has
explanation.
some documents that need to be attached to the agenda item, the document itself. Under Florida statute 120.525, after the agenda has been published, the only way to amend the agenda is for good cause as determined by the person designated to preside over the meeting. So I'm going to tell you the cause that we have, and then you can adopt that as your good cause, Ms.
Okay.
Studdard. As I understand it from speaking with Ms. Ellis, there were reports that were done. This is a conglomerate of reports that are done of the schools for safety and fire inspections. On July 1st, they have to be transmitted to the Department of Education, and they have to be disclosed. After the cutoff for all of the backup, there were 3 more inspections that were done that she became aware of yesterday, and it was too late to put them on the agenda. She would like to attach those 3 to what has already been attached as backup to the agenda. They are final inspections, and they're due on July the 7th. They were received after cutoff. They don't add anything substantive to the agenda item. They just add more detail that is required to be sent to DOE. Failure to amend them will not delay anything, or failure to amend will delay transmitting to DOE. The things that are being added are required, and they are not debatable. So there is nothing to discuss as far as they go, unless you want to go into the details of what each of those reports says. So that good cause is that they're required, and it couldn't be done ahead of time because they weren't finished yet. And failure to do it now would delay the report to DOE. Am I accurate, Ms. Ellis?
Yes, that's correct.
So if you adopt that as good cause, then she can amend and add those 3 reports to what's there. So you have to say, I do.
I do. And I didn't get married. That's the last time I said I do. Okay. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
Second it.
Have a motion by Ms. Kirikas, a second by Ms. Bullock.
So now
Any
I know that there's,
discussion?
well, okay, discussion, thank you. Ms. Ellis, are you going to hand those out to us?
Yes, do you want me to?
Thank you. I called, this was me. I was going through and reading them and saw that there wasn't one for Oak Leaf High School, and I thought they had a perfect report. So I called Miss Ellis and I said, is it just missing, or was it really perfect? And they found nothing. And she said no, that they were still working on it, so, thank you. So that's where this came about and why it, wasn't in the back there. But all in all, when I looked through it, it's all so good. I mean, yes, there's stuff there, but it's minor things that, like the battery running out on a light. And so I just want to compliment our staff on our maintenance team. I know that our custodians are working hard to keep everything running as smoothly as possible, and this report shows they're really doing a good job. So that's all I wanted to say.
Okay. Did we vote?
Not yet.
Okay. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. C38, option contract for Roderico. Is that how you say it? Roderico? Excuse me? How do you say it? Roderico?
Rodrigo.
Well, I'm close enough. Property, for Roderico property, item pulled by Mrs. Kirikas. Okay, Ms. Kirikas, I'll entertain a motion first.
I'll move approval.
I'll second it.
Have a motion by Ms. Gilhouse and a second by Ms. Bola. Now, Ms. Kirikas, you pull this item. You have the floor.
I did, and I know you're all glad that this is the last item. I pulled this because I just feel like this is a want and not a need. And we have no idea what our new budget's going to be coming in, and we're asking the community for a sales tax increase because we have so many needed improvements at all our high schools that I just cannot justify spending $125,000 on a piece of property that we have no intention of using. And I understand that down the road, it'd be nice to have this, or we could demolish it and make it a parking lot, or we could put up a fence and close it off and, close off the road or whatever. And I know that this was offered to us 8 to 10 years ago, and it was contaminated land that had a sewer on it that was or a well that was contaminated. I know they've cleaned it, and there's a report for it. And Dr. Kemp had been trying to negotiate it for 80-something thousand. And I just can't get behind this. I just feel, like I said, this is a want and not a need. And I think we as a board are supposed to be responsible for every penny. And I'm sure you can go to any school and find something worth $125,000 that needs to be repaired that this money could go to, because I really believe our money should be going into our schools right now. So that's what I have to say. I won't support this.
Okay, Ms. Ellis, would you and Mr. Fossa have anything to say about this?
Yes, so real quick, we just did a kind of, well, it was a one pager, it's 2 pages, but kind of did a history of everything so you guys could see it, as far as the appraisals back in 2008 of 360,000, and then just where everything has gone from there. We did a quick layout of a proposed land use just to give you, this isn't a design, this is just an idea, so I don't want to, just wanted to put that out there. But so expanding building 2, it would give us the option to expand building 2, add additional parking, and put in the required pond that we have to have there. And Mr. Fossa is going to speak on the reasons why.
Good evening, everyone. So I looked at this, and I was looking at it through a new lens now. I've always looked at it before through facilities and planning. So I am looking at it now through a safety and security part. So I do want to point out, if you look at the second page, you'll see that Rodrigo goes right through our own property. So I'm looking at it from a safety and security part. The question I would ask, would you be sending people down Center Street every day down to the Quick Mart to walk back and forth, up and down in the middle of the street? You'd say no. Well, that's what we do. If you're working in our building, in food service, in maintenance, or over in purchasing, if you need to go up to the main building, you're walking down the middle of Rodrigo Road. There's no sidewalk there. So it's a safety hazard for me. Also, if you're looking at that, you see the line there, it's 236 yards. That is at nighttime unattended. We've got our white fleet there. We have all of our buildings there, and so that anybody can drive through there, and that area is completely wide open. If we got this land, we would own property on both sides of Rodrigo, so we'd be able to close it off, and then really we'd only be worried about this one little 30 yards there. So I'm looking at it from a safety and security aspect as far as that goes. But we go ahead and look at our warehouse deliveries. You see the red dot? If you go out there, you'll see there's like a king post fence that's there. It is leaning about 30 degrees. The trucks, when they try to back down in there, they hit that because of all the interior fencing. They can't get around it. They've actually hit the old fire station across the street with their rigs as well. So it's difficult to get in and out of there. Building consolidation, right now we have 5 portables. If you go back to the front page, I'm sorry, I'm making you move back forth. The 2 that are near and dear, I'm sure, to Mr. Bickner's heart, one of them is his portable, and the other one is the public affairs portable. We also have a portable that is a food service portable, and we have the portable that is our payroll portable. And we also have a portable that is on the other side over by the H.C. Long building, which we have our academic folks in. If we were to be able to do this, we could eliminate those, and we would have space to build a building. Another issue has to do with, we have our departments spread all over the place. Business affairs, how many different buildings are you guys in? 3 or 4 different buildings. IT, you guys are in 2 different buildings. They're all over the place. So if we were able to get this, we could consolidate and have one campus. It would be more safe for our staff. And look at the cleaning crew that's out there at nighttime. They're walking around at nighttime back and forth, and they would be inside this fence. It is a pretty good deal. We went to them for, I think, $95,000, and they flat out said no. When they went ahead and said this thing was appraised at 136, we came back and we offered them 125. I had to stand in front of the Green Cove Commission and plead our case. There were a couple folks that were against selling it. They're like, God, you guys are getting a heck of a deal. And so we won 3-2. So there were two folks that didn't want to sell it to us at all. So I really would think that this is a good way to go. I realize the money's tight right now, but this is an opportunity. They're not making more land, and we have an opportunity to get some land that we were going to need in our district. I'm even going to point out the fact that today we sat with the Clay County Economic Development Board, and during that brief, they said that we're going to grow by 100,000 people in 10 years. So if you look at I'm going to put my planning hat back on, that we get about 0.56 per students per 100 people. So half of that 100,000 are going to be students. And then about 0.21 of that are going to be elementary kids. So we're looking at approximately 400, if you use their number, 400 additional elementary students a year for the next 10 years. We need administration to be able to handle those students. This is a pretty good deal to be able to house the departments that we're going to need as we move forward.
And where does this money come from? The LCI, or would you like
Yes,
to?
so I wanted to point out that before COVID happened, we did have a line item on our EFP to pay for this. So we did in the hopes that, become available. So we do have the money already planned.
So
set
it's
aside.
in the budget right now?
It's in the budget, yes.
Okay. I can only speak from being the most senior board member here. How'd you like that? The most senior, not oldest. I can remember when Mike Elliott was the assistant superintendent for, back then we called it support services. We tried every way from Sunday to get this property, and it just never happened. We could not get together on the price. I mean, when things were really going crazy for this property, it was appraised at $360,000. Now it's appraised at $136,000, and we're able to get it below the appraisal price at $125,000. I brought my husband down to Green Cove today, and I rode him around because he wasn't familiar with our campus, and he said, "You mean you use this little house?" I said, "Yes, that's insurance." And he said, "You use that building and you use that over there?" I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Well, where's this property you're talking about it?" And I said, "See, if we could get that, we could be one complex, because as I understand it, that road would be closed off. We can build things there. I don't know that we will ever be able to get it for this price again." It's not like we're taking money away from something else. This was budgeted, and I think personally that we are very fortunate that we finally can get together with Green Cove Town Council and come to a solution, because it's a property that it should be school board property where it's located. So anyway, that's all. Any more discussion here?
I just have one question. You said it was 2 votes against it, and that was primarily the price, or was there some other reason?
It was the price. I don't know if Mr. Timberlake said, "You're getting a sweet deal if you get it for this price."
Yeah.
Okay, so those 2 were against because of the price, okay.
They wanted more
Do
money.
we need names of those two?
What did you say, Ms. Guy?
Do we need names
We
of those
got
two
one.
council members?
Yeah, after the meeting, I have a feeling y'all are going to be asked a question about who were those two.
I
Okay.
just have to say, even with your explanations, which I kind of don't really agree with, if we need to put a fence around the White Fleet, it's a lot cheaper than buying this property. But to buy this property so we can then expand, every penny needs to go to our schools. And to say that it's already budgeted from last year, well, every budget has extra fat in it, and it could go to a school. You could be putting that into something at one of our schools. So I think as board members, we're here to look out for our children. And we know $300 million, is it, in repairs? Needed repairs, $300 million. So I know in the big scheme of things, like Ms. Bowler, you said last week, $125,000 in a $400 million budget is not much. In my world, $125,000 is huge. So I think every penny should go into our schools and not a piece of land that we really have no idea. Are we going to make a parking lot out of it, level it? What'll we do? It'll be nice to have down the road. We're going out there to ask for a sales tax. We're not, if we get the sales tax, the first thing we're not doing is building a district compound. That's nowhere in the master plan of any of it. So every penny that comes in has to go to our schools. That's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no.
No.
Motion carries 4-1. Mrs. Karakis dissenting. Okay. The superintendent, you are addressed for, you said you had additional remarks.
Yes, just want to bring to the board's attention an executive order by the governor that came out that is essentially wanted us to close schools in order to, on the primary day and on the election day. It's a recommendation. It's not mandatory to do so, but to do so would require us to close. The order wanted all schools closed. You know, we only have a polling site at one school at Argyle Elementary School. I thought I'd bring this up since this the calendar is purview of the board, and bring it up for your attention.
I think that's crazy. That we would close school on election day just because it's election day?
Thank
I
you.
mean, that's crazy.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
I'm not in agreement with it.
I did not want to be
personally.
negligent and not tell you about the executive order.
But you
Not
said
that I
it's
agreed with
not
it.
ordered, so why
It
are they
said
calling it an executive
I think the
order?
executive order encouraged,
It's an executive order encouraging us to do
encouraging
so.
us to close the schools.
To do
on
that would
election day.
require the calendar committee and all kinds of things to
Do they
be
really
involved
want
in
all
that.
those moms and dads taking their kids to the polling precincts that day?
Anyway, I appreciate you informing the board. We are very informed. Okay. School board attorney remarks. Okay. School board member remarks. Okay. Which end? Let's start with Ms. Gilhousen.
Well, I think we have our work cut out for us over the next couple of
No
months
kidding.
between figuring out the budget and what school looks like. And I am so appreciative of all the input that I've received personally from concerned parents, concerned teachers. I know we're all anxious, I think is probably an appropriate word to use, looking at August. And everybody wants life to be as normal as it can be, I think. And at the same time, we want everybody to be healthy. And those two things are right now a hard to strike a balance between. So I appreciate all the work that your staff has done. Mr. Broski, I know you guys are putting in an insane number of hours trying to figure it all out. And I applaud you for the work that you're doing. And I know we were hoping that we'd get a little more direction from Tallahassee
Yeah.
rather than just figure it out.
Other than,
But at the same time, I do see value in being able to make a plan that's unique to our needs in Clay County. No matter what we do, not everybody's going to agree. It's kind of like fighting a losing battle here. I think it's important, excuse me. I think it's important that we remember our goal is to slow the spread of this virus. There's no eradicating it without an immunization. And at this point, that's not an option. So, and at the same time, we have kids that we need to educate and people that need to work. So, I think we have a lot of stakeholders to consider as we make these decisions. And I know, obviously, safety is preeminent. So as much as I wish that we could give parents and teachers and everybody with a dog in this fight some peace tonight about it, unfortunately, there's no decision that we can really make at this point. But I think that where we are tonight is a good start. So.
okay. Ms. Karakis?
I agree with everything Ms. Gilhousen just said, and so nicely too, eloquently. The first thing on my list was Florida School Board Association has a template for a resolution, and it's a resolution condemning racism and affirming the district's commitment to an inclusive school environment for all. And I brought it with me, just the template, and I've already emailed it to our school board attorney. And I just want to let you all know I was going to bring this back to our next meeting. I'd like you to consider us adopting this. You know, my family is an interracial family. I have an African-American adopted son, and I think every employee and every child should feel safe at school and should not have to come to school and be worried about bullying or anything happening to them. And I just want us as a board to make sure that we address this and make sure that we look out for the safety and the well-being of every one of our children. So I would like the board to consider that. I will bring it back at our next school board meeting. The next thing I have, I'd like to congratulate all our retirees, 103 of them. I like the video that you did. That was really nice since we couldn't have them all here. Kudos to your staff for putting that together, and thank you. Yeah, it really was. And one of my questions was going to be graduation and what our plan was. So you've already updated us on that, and just keep us posted as to what we have to do. And if we have to do it in shifts, I'm sure we're all willing to do what needs to be to make sure that every child gets to walk across that stage, because that's their day and it's their moment to shine, and we want to make sure that it's special. So if we have to stand out there in 98-degree heat for however many hours, we are committed to doing it. And the last thing I have is, and Mrs. Studdard, you may have gotten something about this, we need to choose at tonight's meeting our FSBA liaison, legislative liaison for, I only because it's always been you and me. So, but does somebody else want it this year? It has to be sent to them. I think the application was by July 10th.
I didn't see that. That's-
It came
Did
on
that
one
go
of
to
the,
the board or not,
it
or-
came on the Friday thing.
Oh, okay.
Did you open up the
Okay.
Friday?
So
It came
who
on
was,
that.
who was it this past year?
It's, and
You-
I'm
you
the
wanna do-
alternate.
Right, we can do it again that way.
Y'all
Well,
want to do it like that or
If you would
swap?
keep it like that, I have a conflict because I'm a trustee for the Florida Palm. And
Right.
so I come in
Right.
for that first hour and then I run out. so-
Okay, well, y'all want to keep it like you have. So,
Unless someone else
Ms.
wants it.
Gilhousen
do
or
you
Ms.
see
Bullock-
anybody raise, they're
Child
sitting on their
leave
hands.
that
I don't
for
think so.
I don't mind insurance, I
Hey.
like insurance.
You do not see anyone's hands raised, I assure you.
So
Y'all
Mrs.
are
Bowling,
more than
you'll take
welcome
it
to
and I'll
do
be the
it.
alternate.
That sounds
And
Is that agreeable to Ms. Gilhouse and Ms. Bullock
Very
that we
much so.
continue? And it's certainly agreeable with me.
Right.
Okay.
Ms. Honora, has anything been sent to you as the secretary of the board?
'Cause usually
No.
she gets it,
Well,
yes,
it was
yeah.
on the Friday something or other that we received, so I'll look for the application and forward it to you.
Okay.
And also the date, I believe it was July 10th that we need to adopt it by, or choose, we don't have to take action, but.
Well, we've chosen, and so y'all can just
Right.
fill it out and send it back.
And the
Okay.
last thing I have, I know I've asked a million questions about reopening our schools, and I appreciate all the work that your committees are doing. I know everybody's working hard, and there's so many moving parts to this, and there's going to be things we're not even thinking of that are going to come up. And I'm glad to see that they're preparing for the what ifs. If we open up in a brick and mortar, and then 2 months into it, we have to go distance learning, to have everything in place to make sure that we're doing everything we can. So thank you to your staff and your team and you for the hard work. So that's all I have.
Okay, Ms. Bullock?
Well, first of all, we got to attend a virtual graduation for PACE, and I enjoyed that, and I'm sure everybody else did too. And Celebrate Clay, several of our schools were awarded grants, and that's a wonderful thing. I did get to go to Keystone Heights High School's student-run baccalaureate, which was very nice. They did a great job. It always makes you so proud to see our students take a leadership role, especially those who are getting ready to go out to the world, and they did a really nice job. I'd like to congratulate Ms. Kirkus. She was selected on the board for the Florida School Board Association, so congratulations to that.
Yeah, everybody else's hands were up too.
Alternate is Ms. Bullock, that's
Yeah,
right.
hey,
By default.
you got the short straw.
Exactly. And I'd like to thank Nicole. She came in, we did a public service announcement for our community partnership school, Mirror Lake and I, and poor Lori Burke, the brand new principal, we threw her up against the wall and made her do she said, wait a minute, how many chances did I get?
I just
But
got here.
Yeah, she did a great job, and we really appreciate that. But we're talking about all the things at those schools where we, community partnership schools, they have a health piece, so they might be incorporated into some of these precautions we need to make too. So I know Orange Park Junior High, Orange Park, is it High School and Wilkinson and Keystone? So that might be another little help for that. So, but anyway, again, it's been busy, so.
Okay.
Mrs. Studdard, can I do one more thing? I'd like to ask the board, we have a meeting on July 21st. That is our Is it a budget? And it's 10 o'clock in the morning. Is it time sensitive? No. I'd like to ask if we could move it to 9, if that works with
July
everyone's
21st,
calendar.
Just a minute.
Is that good with you? Thank
So
you.
move it up from 10 to 9.
If that's okay with everyone.
Good with me.
July 21st.
And you have the furthest to go.
I'll just spend the night over.
Right.
Spend the night over.
Does that work for you, Mrs. Bola?
You want to move it to 9?
Is that all right? All right, thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt again.
Okay, Ms. Bola.
When all goes well, we will be looking at graduation on the 17th,
Right.
our Clay virtual graduation on the 17th, our Bannerman graduation on the 20th, and ideally everything will go well because those are definitely times to celebrate. Those are definitely times to rejoice and be happy.
Back
and,
up a minute on those
oops,
dates.
dates. The 17th at 10 a.m. is Clay virtual at Ridgeview.
Just to hang on a minute. Clay virtual. What time?
10.
And it's at Ridgeview?
And then that evening, the graduations, and then Bannerman here at 1 o'clock at in the cafeteria,
On
however.
what day? The same
On
day?
the 20th. No, on the 20th.
And that's at 1 o'clock?
In the cafeteria, which
that's
is good
Bannerman?
because they'll be able to social distance and hopefully be
Bannerman
able to
Learning
handle all
Center
of the families.
graduation in the cafeteria.
And then 9 o'clock the next morning. So we'll be busy that week. And our next school board meeting's not until August officially.
True.
And that will be right before the start of school. So hopefully all of our ducks will be in a row. We'll have everyone ready to go and go in the direction that they choose, I guess is the best way to say that. Rena Lee, I can't thank you enough for all of the help that you've given all of us. Speaking as a teacher, sitting in the audience at these school board meetings, and ultimately getting on the board. I just wanted to say thank you for all that you've done for the teachers, for the students. You've kept them, they've been such a huge part of your heart, and it's been very obvious to all of us. So thank you again and again. Thank you to all of the retirees. As I'm sitting here watching, I would have retired this year had I not been on the board. And seeing my colleagues retiring brought some bittersweet feelings about, whoa, you know, it's not being in the classroom. To those of you who are not going back to the classroom this fall, congratulations, enjoy. I know of a number of you who are already planning vacations and traveling, and I hope that all of those activities come to fruition. If any of you decide to come back as substitutes, that's awesome as well. We would welcome that. And they're all laughing right now, so we should always,
Temperature takers.
yeah, right, temperature takers, right. We are going, if it brought a smile, that was the intent. Thank you for everything, and we'll see you in August.
Okay. Ms. Karakis, are you going to put this, the racism item on the agenda?
I will.
Okay.
Put it on the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bickner will take that template and, you know, fill it out for Clay County and make whatever necessary adjustments he might need to,
Yeah.
and then it'll
Since
be
you
on.
since you brought it up, I wanted to make sure you were putting it on the agenda. If not, I would put it on.
Oh, yes.
So I wanted to make sure it's going to be there. I'm going to tell you something. I'm from Alabama, and I didn't live but 45 miles from Birmingham and Selma in the early 60s. What is happening is so wrong now. We need to take a stand on this. I think it just about makes me sick. I tell my husband I feel like I'm living in Alabama back in the early 60s. This is crazy, but we've got to stop this. Okay, Rena Lee, happy trails. Enjoy.
She got her
It's-
bandana on. Happy
It's been
trails.
real. It's been real, and it's been fun. But I wish you and Cookie the best in the future. The retirees, as Mr. Brodsky said, there were so many up there that I thought, I can't believe they're retiring. I mean,
Neither.
and 101 retirees, and then all those hours, 2340. That's just amazing amount of talent. But we'll keep going, keep chugging along. I guess the next big holiday is the 4th of July. Hope everybody has a wonderful 4th of July and proud of the USA, and get your flags out and have your picnic, socially distanced, of course. And I just hope and pray that some answer can come for COVID. This has been unlike anything any of us have ever lived through. So let's just hope that some vaccine or remedy is found so that, I can't wait until the day that we're, quote, back to normal. And if there's nothing else to come before the board, I'll adjourn the meeting.